Welcome to the 128th season of the Canadian Club Toronto, Canada's Podium. For over a century, this platform has been a gathering place for visionaries, public figures, and decision makers to discuss the most pressing issues of our time.
We've been having important discussions and debates around this podium in this country for well over a century. I call this a historic podium of record.
Our club's always been a forum for visionaries, public figures, and decision makers to command attention to the issues of our time.
The Canadian Club is one of the most important podiums anywhere in the world that a Canadian can speak to, tell Canadians what it is that they think, develop those thoughts. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much.
Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists today.
Through our programs and events, including our youth and young leaders programs, our diversity partnerships, our joint events, and our media and social media opportunities, we offer you access to dynamic political, social, and business figures from abroad and right here at home.
The platform from which the eloquence of Canada has flowed all of that time, whether it be business, education, politics, sports, arts and culture. If someone wants to say something to Canadians about this country and about the future of this country, this is the venue you choose.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Dewar-Thomas, Canadian Club Toronto Executive Member and your host. Welcome to those of you joining online. Interest in politics, whether local, provincial, regional, national, or international, has never been greater. As Canada's Podium, we invite our political leaders to share their perspectives with our members and guests. A lot has changed since our guest speaker's historic election win in October. Her focus is on ensuring economic viability and strength amid the unanticipated tariff war. She's also playing a key role in the renewed desire to strengthen interprovincial collaboration and cooperation. Before we introduce her, I want to acknowledge our season sponsors, the Canadian Bankers Association, and our official airline sponsor, Air Canada. Canada's Forest Trust continues to help capture our carbon by planting a smart forest in our honor with over 1,750 trees planted to date. Thank you for your support. We also appreciate the generosity of today's event sponsors, EY, TD, and Organogram Global. Thank you for your help in making today possible. I'm delighted to welcome students from University of Toronto's Political Science program. We're glad you're here. And now I'd like to share some club announcements with you. Please visit our website at canadianclub.org, where you'll find event and membership information. If you've missed an event, don't worry, we have a popular on-demand service. We appreciate it when you like our events on social media, and I encourage you to share your experiences on your favorite platform. Asking questions is a key part of our time with our guests. Please use this opportunity to query our speaker. Q&A cards are on your table, and they'll be collected by the club staff. For those joining remotely, please hit the red Q&A button on the right side of your screen when we open the floor for questions. And now, I'd like to invite Claude Francoeur, New Brunswick's Office Managing Partner for EY Canada, to introduce Premier Holt.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. My name is Claude Francoeur, and I'm the New Brunswick Managing Partner for EY Canada. It is my pleasure to welcome you and our Premier, the Honourable Susan Holt, to today's Canadian Club Toronto event. Luckily, Jennifer covered the recognition of our First Nations communities. I practiced all morning to get the names right because they're a little bit different than New Brunswick. So I will skip that part, but it's something that's super important for us at EY as well. As we stand today at we're in a pivotal moment for Canadians and New Brunswickers alike. One that calls for bold leadership rooted in a real-world experience. Premier Holt embodies this kind of leadership. Raised in Fredericton, Premier Holt brings a wealth of experience across the private sector, government, and community leadership. She held senior roles in global technology firms, led social enterprises, and worked on social and economic policy within government. What stands out across her career is a consistent people-first approach. She is passionate, and you will see that in a minute, about building inclusive, empowered communities, ones that are age-friendly, environmentally responsible, and committed to true reconciliations with Indigenous peoples. Her belief in balancing fiscal responsibility with strategic investment in healthcare, education, and affordability deeply aligns with EY's purpose of building a better working world. At EY Canada, we're proud to act as trusted advisor at the intersection of government, community, and private sector, helping partners come together to identify purposeful opportunities for mutual growth. Through our government and public sector practice, we work alongside Canadian governments to help drive transformative change that enhance both economic competitiveness and quality of life. As someone who was born in New Brunswick, built a career in business, and served as past chair of the board for the Conseil économique du Nouveau-Brunswick, I have seen firsthand the province's tremendous potential. With 97% of New Brunswick's businesses classified as small, medium-sized enterprises, investing in innovation, entrepreneurship, market diversification, and workforce development is key to unlocking long-term prosperity. Having recently heard Premier Holt speak to industry leaders from the Canadian manufacturers and exporters back home, I look forward to today's conversation as she shares her vision for how her government will support the retooling of New Brunswick's economy in partnership with private investors, Indigenous communities, and regional business leaders across Atlantic Canada and more broadly Canada. And so on behalf of EY Canada and the Canadian Club Toronto, it is my immense pleasure to welcome to the podium a friend and the 35th First Woman Premier of New Brunswick, the Honourable Susan Holt. Very quickly, the Premier will deliver a short address and then sit down with the club director, Sabine Hirchi. So welcome to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a huge treat for me. Treat isn't even the right word. What an incredible room this is. It feels a little strange for a girl from New Brunswick to be standing in a room like this and looking out at such a impressive and powerful crowd of people. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come and be with me today, where I get to do what I think is maybe the best job in the world. But I want to share with you a little something. Whenever I come to Toronto, I have these weird flashbacks because I started my career in Toronto. When I graduated from Queen's, I did what a lot of us do, move up to Toronto for my first job, and that was selling photocopiers on Bloor and Bay. I gotta tell you, selling New Brunswick is the best job in the world. Do we have any New Brunswickers in the house? Show of hands. Yes. Excellent. I'm going to ask you the same question at the end of the speech, and hopefully there'll be even more New Brunswickers or future New Brunswickers raising their hands. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to take your questions. I want to tell you a little bit about the direction that our province is going in, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to go back to my campaign-style speeches, where I would give out an acronym that would help people follow through so that they knew when we were coming to an end. So the acronym I have for you today is I want you to think about New Brunswick as your ATM. So we're going to talk about access, and access to a whole bunch of things. Access to minerals, access to markets, access to materials, access to momentum. That's what New Brunswick has to offer you. So I want to start off with access to minerals, because we are at a point in time when the opportunity globally in the critical mineral sector has never been bigger. And so I want to take this moment to call out our Minister of Natural Resources, John Herron, and the team from our Department of Natural Resources. They are here because there is opportunity to invest in New Brunswick's critical minerals. Canada has identified 34 critical minerals. 21 of them exist in New Brunswick, and many of those undeveloped, ready to be tapped into. So this is things like zinc and copper, manganese, tungsten, molybdenum, indium, things that go in solar panels and touchscreens, things that power a future green economy and digital world. And those are waiting to be taken advantage of in New Brunswick. And so I want to invite all of you who are looking at ways that we can strengthen Canada's position in a global world where these minerals that are critical for defense, minerals that are critical to the green economy, everyone wants them. The U.S. Department of Defense is investing in New Brunswick right now in a tungsten and molybdenum development that we have going. It gives us interesting leverage in the situation that we're in right now. I asked myself if I could get through this speech without using the T word. I'm not sure if I can, but and then we have China knocking at our door, asking for those same minerals. It gives us an interesting play in Canada to be finding ways to get access to those minerals and get those minerals to market in the form of the products that the world wants. And there's no better place in Canada to get into that development than New Brunswick for a couple reasons. One, the minerals we have in our province are not 524 kilometers away from T-Bay. They are right down the road from a place that has a college and a cafe. You don't need to build new roads to get at these things. You don't need to set up camps to provide for the staff. They're right there in our backyard with easy access to great places to live. The other thing our team has been doing to make sure that our mineral opportunity is right for the taking is building fundamentally new and respectful relationships with First Nations in New Brunswick. Something that was desperately needed after the last 6 years. And we have First Nations at the table, ready to partner. That's work that the government of New Brunswick is doing to make it really easy for a partner to come in, to join us at the table, to get ready access. And then we have a federal government who is also ready to align approval processes, one project, one application. It's never going to be easier to go through the environmental rigor that we are going to put in place to get the community and the First Nations partnerships lined up and to get shovels in the ground, minerals out, and turning those into the solar panels that we all want and the touchscreens that we all need. So think about New Brunswick as your place for access to minerals. But I also want you to think about New Brunswick as a place where you can have access to markets. So that's my second ATM. We are uniquely located. I hope there's nobody in this room who doesn't know where New Brunswick is, but I will explain that we are on the eastern seaboard. We are physically connected to Maine by a border that we share. We are very, very close to the largest population of the U.S. So you have Boston, you have New York, you have all of the cool humans that live in the U.S. very, very close to New Brunswick, but we're on the eastern seaboard facing toward Europe. And we are the closest part of the country to a European market that has not been tapped to its full potential. And we have a phenomenal port in St. John that is growing like, not like a weed, growing like a bouquet of flowers. and is giving you access to markets in Europe, in Africa, and beyond. We have a port in the north on the Baie de Chaleur, the port of Belledune, that is also really building a green economy opportunity. They have bulk in that port, so we have ways to get your products to customers all over the world and to bring in your inputs because of the access to market that the infrastructure in New Brunswick offers you, as well as our location and our time zone and the fact that we're just in this perfectly beautiful spot where the tides have never been higher and where life is pretty good. So I want you to think about how you get access to market in New Brunswick, and I want to take an opportunity to talk about the retooling of the economy that the province is doing for this. Now is the time to invest in infrastructure that's going to improve our access to markets. Now is the time to invest in the kind of things like our ports and our airports and our rail. We have an amazing partnership with CPKC that runs from St. John all the way through to all the critical markets in the US that you would want to reach, and that rail is getting busier and busier. We are in a great position to retool our economy and invest in the kind of growth infrastructure we need, because New Brunswick has the lowest debt to GDP ratio east of Saskatchewan. That helps our bankers go out and sell New Brunswick on the bond market, and it gives us the space to do what we need to do right now, to invest in new growth opportunities, to invest in the kind of infrastructure that's going to support reaching those new markets that we want to diversify to. So we are retooling our economy with fuel in the tank, getting ready to welcome the world to New Brunswick and to take what New Brunswick has that the world loves. And it's more than just our lobster and our snow crab and our trees. It's also our minerals, and it's also our people. So with that, I want to talk to you about the third ATM that I want you to think of when you think of New Brunswick. And that's, I'm going to call it access to materials. I had to stretch a bit to make this M1 fit. So we're going to call them materials, but they're people materials. Because we are a great place to get into health work. When I ran my campaign, my commitment to New Brunswickers and the mandate that I was elected on was that I was going to improve New Brunswickers' access to health care. That was the number one thing they wanted, and I'll tell you that that is what my team and I talked about day in, day out, and that is how we spend most of our time today, is figuring out how we can help New Brunswickers get better access to healthcare, quicker access to healthcare, the information they need at their fingertips and at their healthcare providers' fingertips, no matter whether at the Port of Belledune or the Port of St. John or next to the manganese mine outside of Woodstock or up in the Bathurst zinc camp. We have real opportunity in healthcare in New Brunswick right now because of some work that a gentleman sitting right here in front of me did a lot of years ago. Frank was a leader in building out what we used to call the information highway in New Brunswick and building out a technical capacity, a knowledge base in our universities and in our workforce of people who know technology well, we have a highly connected province ready to leverage the opportunity that digital healthcare presents to us. We have a University of New Brunswick that is a leader in both cybersecurity and has launched a digital integrated health initiative through their St. John campus that's pushing the boundaries of research and how we tie together healthcare right from the patient all the way through to the database and back to the provider and beyond. And so it's a really exciting time to be in healthcare in New Brunswick and to think about ways that we can use our access to materials. And these are these humans that have this knowledge. We've got really excited to see a partnership with Well Health, who have invested in VeroSource, who have the first in the world patient-managed patient summary. That means anything to the health tech people in the room. It means that your health information you can have on your phone and share with whomever you want, wherever you want, anywhere in the world in order to get health care. It's groundbreaking. And what we're going to be doing with Well Health is building the best-in-class healthcare network for New Brunswickers and for Canadians. And I'm really excited about it. The other unique way we're leveraging one of our, what you might have called a disadvantage in New Brunswick, we are slightly older as a population than some other provinces in Canada. We are sicker as a population than some other provinces in Canada, so we have more incidents of chronic illness, of heart conditions, of COPD, of diabetes and others. But I'll tell you what, that makes us a phenomenal place to come and do clinical trials and health research. And we are expanding our focus on clinical trials in part because there's a great opportunity to grab from the US right now. Now is not a great time to be in health research with our neighbors, and we have folks who have really exciting new drugs and new solutions that they want to bring to market, but thankfully getting them through Health Canada is faster than getting them through the FDA. And doing it in New Brunswick, you have high levels of trial adoption, people ready to be there on your list and on your roster. And so we are going to become a place where you can take the clinical trial, the learning that you get from that, partner with one of our digital health companies, and build out solutions fast that can get to market and help all Canadians be healthier. Take a deep breath and then see. Okay, now I'm into the fourth one. I don't know. Yeah, thank you. Give me a chance to find my water glass and see what I need. The last one that I want to talk to that makes New Brunswick your ATM is the access that you have to me, to ministers, to the people that you need to get stuff done. We are a small place, and that means we're nimble. We are not full of a lot of egos. If you need to get the right people in the room, get the decision makers in the room, that can happen in an afternoon in New Brunswick. We, for good or for bad, are all connected. We've got like 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon in New Brunswick. And so if you want to get a decision made and you want to move a project forward, and it's so much easier and faster to do in our province, and that means you can capture momentum. Because I think there's some people in this room who knows what it feels like when you're waiting for a cabinet decision or a regulatory change or legislation to move. You're waiting to get that meeting with the person who needs to get a meeting with the person who needs to get another meeting. You're nodding, you've lived this. In New Brunswick, that's one of the reasons why I have a minister here. We have a civil service that is motivated to sit down with you, to get out of the office, to bring decisions through to our cabinet. We, and me in particular, as you can see, I can't sit still. I need things to move. And so in New Brunswick, we are moving things along at a speed that is going to give your project momentum, because you are going to have access to me and to the ministers you need to get, whether it's your health technology project going, whether it's your mineral development or processing project going, you're going to get access to that kind of momentum in New Brunswick. It is a really exciting time to be in la seule province bilingue du Canada. We are absolutely the most beautiful place to be, but I bet you didn't realize what we have to offer you as an ATM, where you can access minerals and markets and the human materials and the decision makers that you need to get momentum in the economy and take advantage of the growth that is in front of us. Because around the globe, people want to buy Canada. They want more Canada in their supply chains. They want more Canada in their purchases. We want to see more New Brunswick in Canada and the world, and that's why we've set up this framework to do it. I'm going to close with an invitation. I want you to come to New Brunswick. Anybody who was thinking of using their vacation to go golf in Arizona, change those plans, cancel them, come and golf along the Bay of Fundy, or come and golf along the Bay de Chaleur. I can promise you that you will have extremely warm and friendly hospitality. If you don't want to be bothered, you won't be bothered. You are going to have world-class scenery. You are going to be able to breathe the salt air, feel it deep in your soul. You're going to want to move to New Brunswick, I think, and I would invite you not only to come on vacation for the summer, but come and join me as we retool our economy in New Brunswick, as we become Canada's ATM, and give you access to the kind of momentum you need to grow your business, to grow your career, to have a great, accessible life in our little province. So I'm going to ask you, how many people in this room are New Brunswickers or want to be New Brunswickers? Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
That's great.
Hey.
Excuse me, I'm just booking my ticket.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm going to take
Thank you. Wow. I've heard you speak before, but every time I hear you, I'm sitting at the edge of my seat. So we have question cards, I think, at the tables. If you've got a question, I think you're supposed to raise your hand and somebody picks it up. I know you didn't want to talk about the T word, but
I figured there would be questions, so I thought I could get away.
I'm going to get the question out of the way. Because I know everyone is seized by the tariffs. Yesterday, the Prime Minister made a pretty strong statement when he said this is fundamentally going to reset international trading system. Now, we may have dodged the bullet yesterday, but that was just yesterday. The tariffs that are already in place are going to have a profound impact on millions of Canadians. Now, you were at a meeting with him this morning, and I think he's since done a press release that most of us haven't seen. So take us behind the curtain. Tell us what the conversation was at that meeting and what the outcome was.
Yeah, I never would have guessed that I was sworn in on November 2nd. There was a US election on November 5th, and I think the president first mentioned tariffs on November 28th. And since then, I have had the opportunity to meet with the prime ministers, I guess. I'm on my second prime minister right now, and the premiers on a practically weekly basis, sometimes in person, a lot of times by a video conference or teleconference. And I want to let folks in this room know how hard those folks are working and how strong that Team Canada base is across the premiers of this country and with our Prime Minister. And so we've... So New Brunswick is the most impacted province in terms of exposure to trade with the U.S. It's 92% of our exports go to the United States. And a lot of that is concentrated out of one city, the city of St. John in New Brunswick, that is our base for our petroleum exports, our forestry exports, our seafood exports. Those are some of the big three. Those are the big three, sorry. And so what we talked about this morning, because we've on the calls so much, we got it down to a 29-minute call where the Prime Minister shared with us the decision of the level of retaliation that the federal government was going to take in terms of retaliatory tariffs to be applied to the tune of $24 billion, with probably $5 or $6 billion of wiggle room as we look at what is USMCA compliant, focused on the automobile sector in response to what the President put in place. There is unanimity and across the premiers and the Prime Minister that this is not a time to provoke or to be heavy-handed. So that $24 billion was chosen specifically in response to $44 billion of tariffs that the U.S. has put on us. So it is a smaller response. It's not dollar for dollar. It's meant to show that we are fighting back, but not with a hammer, with a black glove, right? We want to get really specific about how we push back on the U.S. And continue doing some of the things that have proven to work. One of the things we've seen with the really focused approach that the federal government has taken, we saw in the Senate yesterday in the U.S., where 4 Republicans joined with the Democrats to vote in support of eliminating Canadian tariffs. And 2 of those were from Kentucky, 1 was from Maine, and 1 was from Alaska. And so there was some specific and strategic work done to get something that passed through the Senate by pulling on board, both through a tariff response and other relationships, the Republicans that we needed to get it done. And so we talked about next steps in relationship building, the supports that are needed for the auto sector in Ontario. Every premier across Canada is in support of Doug here in Ontario and supporting the auto workers in that industry to make sure, because we're all connected, and New Brunswick in particular. Ontario is our second largest trading partner interprovincially, and so somebody says when Ontario sneezes, New Brunswick gets a cold. What is bad for the Ontario economy is bad for the New Brunswick economy, and so we're all standing together to say no tariffs are a good tariff. We want them removed. We're going to have a strategic and measured response right now with a $24 billion retaliatory package and some gates, so that there's opportunities for the U.S. to get out of this. We're going to give them some timelines to say, here's where it's going to go next if you don't act, so that we can try to move them to a place where we can have truly free trade between our closest neighbor and longest ally.
So 2 questions coming off that. You talked about the Team Canada approach, collaboration, united, common purpose, all of those things that happen in a crisis. And often in organizations, you see that, and of course that's my context. How can we sustain that Team Canada approach and mindset? And how does that extend to business leaders, many of whom are in this room today?
That's a great question. And I'd be interested in the thoughts of some folks in this room on that, because I don't know about you, but I have really been feeling the Canadian patriotism in a way that I haven't in a long time, and want to be wrapping myself in a flag and telling everybody that we're all part of Team Canada. And so, which is a great feeling, actually, to see the kind of unity and the way the country has come together has made me really proud. And how do we keep that going? I think we look at opportunities to celebrate, to get together, to get to know each other. I think there's a real opportunity right now for Canada to do more business with Canada. Right? I know there's some New Brunswickers who would love to try some BC wines, and I know there's some folks in BC that would love to eat our scallops and our snow crab and our redfish, but we have problems in consuming our own products. We're a big country, and so it's a real opportunity now to take that Canadian spirit and connect it to the kind of trade infrastructure and the kind of harmonized trade environment, the removal of these interprovincial trade barriers that lets great Canadian products, be they food or agriculture or otherwise, move from coast to coast to coast so that we can do more business with ourselves. And I think that's something that I would encourage business leaders to do is, I know we've done this in government, is we've really looked at our supply chain. We have stopped purchasing from US providers. We're looking for Canadian alternatives. We're looking for global alternatives because we now have an unreliable trading partner and we have to reduce our dependency on them. And the more we can fill that from other provinces, from each other, the better for Canada in the long run.
Yeah, and I think you're really speaking to everyone can play a part, and sometimes you feel helpless, but there really is a role for everyone, and certainly business leaders that are sitting in the room, I think can take some things away from this. So you're actually answering my questions in your questions, but
I'll try to keep them shorter.
You talked a lot about critical minerals. And I think you said 21 critical minerals and lots of EMs that you listed. And I know you touched on it in your remarks, but I'm going to ask you to maybe double click on that a little bit because we have to hear messages multiple times. And the mineral message is a really important one. So many provinces are talking about the mineral development opportunities, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, the Saskatchewan, BC, the territories. What makes New Brunswick truly unique?
Oh, there's so many things that make New Brunswick truly unique. So I'll happy to go through the mineral opportunity again, because there isn't a province in Canada that has the mineral mix that we have. We are the only place on the eastern seaboard of North America that has potash, which, as we're seeing, is a critical mineral for the U.S.'s agriculture sector, and one of the only places they can get it is Saskatchewan. But because the eastern seaboard is where a significant amount of the population is, and some of the agricultural activity in the U.S., we have a potash opportunity in New Brunswick that is very closely located to the port that can get that product really efficiently down to the places that it needs to be. And again, that potash mine, as well as our zinc mines, our indium, our antimony, they're all close. So you don't have to do the kind of work that it takes to develop in the Ring of Fire. If anybody's been up there, just getting there alone is a huge piece of work. And then once you're there, bringing in the resources, the equipment, the labor is really challenging. Whereas in New Brunswick, the manganese opportunity is in the backyard of a community that someone wants to live in. And the backyard, it's 20 minutes down the road. Everything in New Brunswick is kind of 20 minutes down the road. So it makes it a great place to bring your mining executives, your developers, and to know that the cost to get that mine set up does not involve you having to build an ice road. And it doesn't involve you having to set up those horrible trailer camps that you're going to ask someone to live in for some amount of time. It means you can really get the labor that you need and get access to a resource with a government that's at the table and has set the table for you to have all the right people in the room to see that project move a lot faster than I think we've ever seen projects move in Canada.
So this is a segue to talking about markets and opening new markets. I was just listening to your press conference yesterday. And you talked about conversations happening within Asia, different countries in Asia, different countries in Europe. Can you say more about that? What's happening in terms of developing those markets? And I think it was one of your ATMs as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great time for all Canadians to be looking for access to new markets, because we have to get off our dependency on the US, and the world wants to buy from Canada. The world wants more Canada, so it is the time when we should be out on the road building the kind of partnerships that we need to. So we're doing that in a number of different ways in New Brunswick. Some of it is structural. So our Port of Baldoon has trade relationships with 3 different ports in Europe. I think Rotterdam, I'm not going to remember all the names of them, but I'll learn that for the next one. Same with the Port of St. John. They have partner and feeder ports that give us priority logistical access to some of those markets to move goods in and out. And then we have new buying relationships that we're developing. So a small example is as Russia is looking to shift their seafood in to flood the US market, but that means they're taking it off the plates of their customers in Japan. So New Brunswick's going to go to Japan and fill that backlog with our phenomenal seafood and take advantage of new opportunities to build trade relationships in Asia with Japan and with South Korea and with places where they already prioritize. Here's my other little health word of the day. They prioritize the healthiest and best protein you can eat, which is a seafood. So any of you who are still with your New Year's resolutions of eating more healthy, you should add some New Brunswick seafood protein to your diet. The folks in Japan are doing it, and they live longer than the rest of us. And so there's some of these pieces, right, that we have to look for the opportunities that present themselves. I just learned today that Germany is opening up to the cannabis market, and New Brunswick is Canada's best producer of cannabis. There's an opportunity. Yes, thank you. We've got a phenomenal example in our sponsors today that employ 800 New Brunswickers, and they see opportunity in Europe, and we want to help them get there. Because this means new customers for New Brunswick, new customers for Canada, new economic activity that isn't dependent on a current country whose values don't match our own and who's proven that they can't be trusted. So we think maybe we can trust the folks in Germany and build some good cannabis partnerships with them, as well as, I could go on for a long time. We're talking about forestry partnerships that we're building in Scandinavia, and we have some interesting human partnerships in India around talent and research. So there's lots happening on the new markets front.
And do you see the provinces working together on building some of these markets, or does the collaboration extend to that, or does that turn into competition?
I think it's a healthy competition, collaboration. It's kind of like siblings, right? Like we're all going to get in the same minivan, and we're going to go to the same place, and then we might race to see who's getting the dessert off the buffet versus the steak. But there's opportunities that we can collaborate. Certainly the Atlantic provinces are actually really great at this. We operate as maritime provinces, as Atlantic provinces. When I was down in Boston for this global seafood show, between New Brunswick and Newfoundland and PEI, we all sort of rep each other's products because we share a lot of integration. And then when we identify opportunities in Japan and South Korea, we share those leads and those opportunities with each other. So I think it's a great time for Canadians to have the kind of healthy interprovincial competition that makes us all better and leaner and more efficient, but that we also share some of the knowledge so that we can beat out all the rest of the world to getting our great products to more markets.
Yeah, it makes me think of back to the interprovincial trade barriers. So the West has developed a partnership with the 4 Western provinces in terms of breaking down some of those barriers. Do you see something like that happening in the Atlantic provinces?
Yeah.
And would you lead it?
Well, actually, New Brunswick has already called for the creation of an Atlantic Free Trade Zone because our 4 provinces already do a lot of things together. We do shared purchasing together, we do tourism and hospitality initiatives together, and so I thought it was a great time to say, why not one regulatory environment? We don't need multiple labelings, we don't need multiple regulations, particularly for goods and services that should be able to move very freely amongst our 4 small, unique provinces. And so Premier Houston's on board, Premier Lance is on board, Premier Fury's on board. We see some carve-outs for fish that we can understand. But there's real opportunity for us in the East to use that nimbleness that comes with being small to move fast and to show the rest of Canada how it's done.
So there's a couple of comments here just around leadership and your style. There's a comment and a question. Love that you're empowering the public service. Keep up the great work. You talked about, and when you were introduced, we heard about your leadership style and one that's got a human element to it. Is my mic still on?
I'll give this one.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's on. You want to try mine? I can lean over.
There's collaboration at a new level. I don't think this is on either.
I can hear you.
There we go. Is it on now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So just in terms of your style, first woman premier in the Atlantic. You have a leadership style that perhaps is a little bit different. Do you worry that people are going to say, it's the soft stuff, and that's not what you really need in difficult times and times of crisis? And how do you keep true to your leadership style?
Wow, Zabine. Who wrote that?
Well, I sort of adjusted it a little bit. My HR comes into play.
Look, I can appreciate that there's a notion that in times of war, you need the strong man leading from the front with the deep voice who's 6 foot something and looks like they're going to be the leader of your military. I don't think that that's what we actually need right now. And in part, it's because of what we just talked about. The opportunities are in collaboration. The opportunities come from building out a resilient network of customers, of suppliers and partners and employees who are going to have loyalty to your business and to your product. And you do that by building an emotional connection with them. And I think people are really hesitant to trust in this day and age, and for very good reason. Right? Any of us who are scrolling don't know whether the information we're looking at is real or manipulated or manufactured. And so there's a real cynicism and a lack of trust that we're all fighting. And I think that requires being pretty authentic, being very authentic, being vulnerable. And for me, it means showing New Brunswickers how much I love them, showing them compassion, because they're going through some tough stuff. Canadians are going through challenges right now with housing and affordability. They're trying to pay the bills. They don't know if they're in the auto sector right now, whether their job's going to be there. I don't think they need me commanding them from the front to say, let's go. I think they need me to say, it's going to be okay. I got your back. I'm going to give you a hug. We're going to reach out and build this into a massive group hug. And then that kind of love and trust is going to take us to new places.
What a beautiful place to end. The future of leadership is human, and you have brought that to this stage today. Thank you so much. You'll get an official thank you, but thank you. It's been a pleasure.
On behalf of Canadian Club Toronto, Premier Holt, I want to thank you for sharing your inspiring and very bold vision and plans for New Brunswick with us this afternoon. New Brunswickers are lucky to have a Premier who leads with honesty and empathy and is deeply rooted in the community. May your tenure as Premier continue to be inspiring as well as rewarding. We look forward to welcoming you back again. As our event closes, I want to invite members and guests to join us for some of our upcoming events. On April 16th, we have the CEO of OMERS, Blake Hutchinson, joining us. On April 23rd, we have a conversation about charting Canada's Arctic future, featuring Nathan Obed, the president of the ITK. And on April 24th, we'll host Roy Gorey, the president and CEO of Manulife. Please visit canadianclub.org for more information. One more special thank you to EY, TD, and Organogram Global for supporting our conversation today. And a big thank you to VVC Live, our club's AV supplier, for helping make us look good and sound great today. Enjoy your afternoon, and thanks everyone for being here.